Hey, I'm Ben Silverio.
And I'm Aaron Klein.
And I'm Ansel Birch, your host in post.
And it's time to party.
Pew, 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 pew.
Pew, pew.
We are not doctors and we don't give medical advice. Please drink responsibly.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, Aaron.
How are you doing this fine morning, afternoon? I don't know. Time means nothing.
Time means nothing. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, everybody. Ben, what movie are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about Beyond the Time Barrier.
From 1960.
Oh my gosh, it's just so... Oh man, there's so many words that can be used for this movie. And I don't know how many of these words are good words.
Hilarious way to describe a movie. There are just so many words that could be used. It sounds like you're reviewing a play that was put on by the Queen where you're like, I can't say anything bad, so I'm just going to use lots of superfluous language. There are so many words that could be used to describe Beyond the Time Barrier.
Because I don't want to prematurely trash this movie before our listeners get to episode 2, right? So...
Yes, hilarious. I approve of this wording.
Wow, okay.
Yes, well, listeners, if you've never heard of Beyond the Time Barrier,
not
then
alone.
You're just like me. Yeah, I was right there with you. Here's the synopsis from IMDb. Okay. In 1960, a military test pilot is caught in a time warp that propels him to the year 2024, where he finds a plague has sterilized the world's population. Yeah.
Except for one hot girl.
Except for one hot deaf lady.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. All right, let's do some behind the scenes on why we chose this movie. So,
yes.
Because none of us had ever heard of this movie before. Like, I sat down to watch it, basically. Okay, so originally this was going to be an episode where we reviewed the apparently terrible, I've never seen it, Doctor Who movie from 1996. And Doctor Who is so bad, apparently, that it is impossible to find. It is very difficult to find a way to watch it. It's, like, not easy to rent. You basically have to have already owned it in order to watch it. So, because the only way that we could find it, that we knew for sure that we could all watch it, was on YouTube, and you had to adjust the playback speed. And we all decided as a group that that is too high of a barrier for entry for people to be able to watch along it. Because we obviously want this to be accessible so that people can smoke and drink along, and then obviously be prepared for the episode 2. And then, I mean, episode 3 you can drop in for whatever, but also it makes more sense if you've seen the movie about why we picked what we did. So that's why we're not doing Doctor Who. We're very interested in the idea of Doctor Who and the time travel mechanism, obviously, but because we're only doing movies in season 1, we just couldn't find a way to fit it in. So that's why we wound up with me scrolling through Prime going, what can we watch? And we selected another movie that we decided didn't work because it's already been done by Mystery Science Theater, and we didn't want to, that's a whole other episode about their cultural impact inside of that kind of stuff. And so me literally scrolling randomly went, that one, and found Beyond the Time Barrier. So that is how we're watching this. It's available to watch on Prime. It's very easy. It was free on there. So this is a very accessible movie. And if you have, for some reason, already seen it, congratulations. I'm very impressed that you have seen this movie, because I had literally never even heard of it. And so this is how we arrived at this movie, with this Cold War era time travel movie.
I am particularly excited for this set of episodes purely because you didn't like it and Aaron did.
Yes, that's what I was just gonna say. I feel like these are gonna be really interesting because we have very different views about this movie, I think. So I'm really interested to hear why you didn't like it.
Sure. Tune in for episode 2.
Oh man, we're just really pumping up for these upcoming episodes. I'm so excited.
It's gonna be a good one.
This is an exciting month, everybody. We are in for a surprise and a treat for all.
Oh yeah. It's a bonkers month, kids.
Yes. That is the fucking truth.
Scroll through
up.
Amazon Prime, cue it up now.
Right? Everybody put on your flight suits, get into your jetpack harnesses. It's time to strap in. We're ready to take off for I promised at the beginning of this podcast I wouldn't make puns, and here I am making fucking flight plan puns because it's beyond the time barrier. This movie has broken me. All right. Drinking and smoking game. Ben, hit me with your first rule.
Okay. First rule. Take a drink every time we get a close-up of Major Allison's weird face. He makes a lot of weird faces in this movie, and they always close up on it. And I'm like, I don't need to see his weird face anymore. Robert Clark makes the weirdest fucking faces.
Man.
He was acting so hard.
We're going to get into Robert Clark in episode 3, so that's...
Oh, man.
I would have made a lot of weird faces, too. I'm just going to put that out there. Oh, that's a really good one. Okay. Yeah. That's a really good one.
I mean, you'll just be consistently drinking towards the end of the movie because, like, he has a weird face, not because of him.
Yeah, I thought you were implying, like, Robert Clark just has, like, a weird face, and every time we saw it that we should be taking a drink, but I understand now. You're saying every time he makes a weird face as an actionable thing, as, like, a verb.
Exactly.
He faces.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, he's a handsome dude, I guess, but he makes weird faces.
That's a really good one. I like that one a lot. All right, my first one. Take a hit every time you see a jet on a runway. It happens a shitload at the beginning of the whole opening credits sequence, which is like old school Hollywood, so all of the credits are at the beginning, is just like shot after shot of jets on a runway. And honestly,
you know what's
get
funny?
High as hell before you watch this movie.
Yes, I thought you were going to bring back Wheels on the Ground.
I thought about it and I was like, I don't know. That's such a Terminator specific one. I didn't want to bring it back and be like, I'm just recycling my smoking game rules. So very specifically, jets on a runway. Yes. Also, I don't even think there are other wheels on the ground in this movie.
No, but there's just a whole lot in the beginning.
There's a lot going on. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So after the first rule, I realized that this was a very short movie.
75 minutes. Yes.
That's how long the movie is. It's ridiculously short. So I had to kick it in gear when I had to think about these drinking rules. So this one is kind of a bland rule, but it happens a lot. So at least you'll get drunk while watching this ridiculous fucking movie.
Is this more of a sipping rule?
No, I think you could full on drink because it's kind of spread out enough, but it happens a lot. So drink every time someone uses a rank, like captain, major, colonel, chief.
Yeah, that's a good one. I feel like beginning and end, there's a lot of that too. It bookends like with the jets. That's a good one. A lot of my rules have to do with feelings, so you as the audience member get to decide when these are happening. Take a hit every time the graphics in this movie make you laugh out loud.
Oh my god.
There are a lot. There's a bunch.
There's a lot. A whole lot.
I don't think you can do that one and the jet. I think you gotta pick one. Because it's the same periods.
Users say, well, jets on a runway are one thing, because there's that whole sequence at the very beginning during the credits, and then there's the graphic of the jet going through the time barrier, which is I legit just started laughing. I was so delighted by it. Like, that was my first cue for this movie where I was like, I'm gonna make the decision that I'm gonna enjoy this movie because this is so silly and it's making me like absolutely feel delighted in how silly it is. Like, I think that was a huge part of why I liked this movie, is because I was just like, I'm ready to embrace the camp. I'm ready to embrace how dumb this movie is. I think that's a huge part of why I enjoyed it. So yeah, every time you laugh out loud because of the dumb graphics, take a hit.
That actually ties into my last rule, because like since the movie was so short, there wasn't a whole lot of things that happened a whole lot. So my last rule was drink every time there's a triangle wipe.
That's good.
Yeah.
That was one of the things the production crew like decided from the beginning. They wanted that to be the motif of the movie, was the triangles.
Yes.
So it happens a lot.
But the triangle wipes, every time they happened, that was definitely a laugh out loud moment for me, because I'm just like, are you serious? Another triangle wipe.
Mm-hmm. I made a bunch of notes about the fancy triangle wipes. Like, ooh, here we go.
I bet that was really time consuming too.
Oh yeah, for the time. It's like in the first 4, 5, and 6 of the Star Wars movies where there are all those like slide transitions. It's like a motif within Lucas's directing, because at the time they felt it was really impressive visual cinema because people weren't used to that kind of thing, and that's what the triangles in this make me think of, is that like I agree they make me laugh out loud because they happen so often, but like as an audience who's never seen something like that, I bet that it was thrilling every time it happened, even though it happens a shitload in this movie.
That's true. At the time it could have been an advancement in cinema, you know. I'm taking for granted that that's real corny now and is available as a template on editing software. So yeah, I'm sure at the time they were like, what the hell?
Someone with an X-Acto knife had to make that
That's
happen.
true.
Yeah, exactly. Like 1960, it's a much like this is a B movie for sure. This is a low budget like studio lot movie. It's not actually a studio lot. We'll talk about that later, but like this is a low budget movie, and for the amount of money they spent on this movie, I feel like they did a really good job with that kind of stuff.
Sure.
It makes it feel like they put more time and effort into it than they probably actually did.
Yeah, definitely more time and effort into the filming than into the writing.
Yes. Yes. That is for certain. 100%. Okay, I have a bunch of feelings lists, so I'm gonna fly through these rules.
Share your feelings, Aaron.
All right, here we go. Take a hit every time there is a dramatic change in the music. It happens a lot. It happens a fucking lot.
Much.
I loved it. I was like, this score is ridiculous. It's one of those things too that like it feels very silly and campy, but I also understand that for 1960, like the score is like exciting and is very like, ooh, we as the audience are like being given this information. Ooh, fancy. Like that's what the like big swells in music always made me think of. So there's that one. Related, take a drink every time there's an abrupt fight, which also happens several times in this movie.
Several times.
There's a lot of really good, surprisingly good fight choreography in this, which we'll get into in episode 2. Or at least I will, because I really enjoyed that. But it just out of nowhere, like they're like when they come to the room and Allison's like, I'm not gonna go with you, and they're like and just like punch each other in the face a bunch. Like it just happens out of nowhere for what feels like no reason, and yet somehow still feels appropriate once you get to the end and you're like, wow, there's just a lot of fighting going on. It started to feel more natural for me. So take a drink every time that happens. This is my favorite rule. Take a drink every time you think, man, she's walking really awkwardly in those shoes. Every single time we saw Tierney, I don't even remember the only fertile person in this world. Every time we saw her, she was just walking so fucking weird.
So weird.
It was like they put her in shoes that were like just a little bit too small for her. That's what it felt like. She was like, I'm trying to walk and I don't want my feet to fall out of these shoes, either just a little too big or a little too small, because she's like taking these very little like percussive steps. It's so strange, and it clicks because the floor is hard, so you get to like hear the cadence of how fucking weird she's walking. So take a drink every time you think that. Take a drink every time you want to yell at Allison, she cannot hear you.
Oh my god, yes. So much.
She cannot hear you, and she cannot answer you. Anytime you want to yell that at the television screen, you should take a drink because you deserve it.
Oh man, yes.
I understand she can read your mind, like that's the whole deal, but she can't answer you. You can't read her mind. It's like he doesn't understand that.
Man, I'm gonna get into it in the next episode, but one of the notes I wrote down is Allison is an idiot.
Yes, Allison's such an idiot.
Why do they trust him to fly planes?
Because he can do like a task, and it's fly a plane. He can't like think critically about the situation that he's in. He can't play it cool. Nope. He's not a spy. None of that. He's just a person who's like, I put on my jumpsuit, I sit in my pilot's seat, I take off from the run. And like, I say that very flippantly. I understand test pilots are people who like risk their lives every day to fly these very dangerous aircraft. But also like, I wouldn't take a test pilot and be like, hey, can you art design this movie? Like that, it's not like a cross-functional, like you're really good at this thing.
I feel like there is a conversation to be had about the trope of the himbo fighter pilot.
Oh my god. Himbo fighter pilot. For sure. I mean, I didn't particularly find Allison to be like really good looking, but at the time for the 60s, himbo for sure. Mm-hmm. This is a man who like, he's like, I'm a fancy scientist. And you're like, you sure are, buddy. And then the second you want to talk to him about like, hey, what's going on geopolitically? He's like, I don't know. I just like to fly my plane and look real cute. And like, that is, I feel like that's Allison. He's like, what do you mean there was a plague? What do you mean I've got to marry this lady? Like, it's just one after the other where you're like, sir, what's happening here?
I don't care what you say.
What year is it then?
What year is it? Like,
for you, it's this time, but for me...
You see here, it's 1960. No, it's not. They've told you 8 times it's not.
Time is subjective, I say. Man. No.
Oh, okay, I have 2 more. Related to the walking one. Take a hit every time the walking scene is, for some reason, really strangely long. Ugh. Also happens a bunch of times. There's a lot of walking in this. And, like, not walking and talking. It's not Sorkin style. It's just walking.
Just walking.
Just a lot of walking going. This is a 75-minute movie. And there are, I would say, solid 5 minutes of walking. Like, there's a lot of walking in this movie.
Yeah.
It happens a lot. Okay, my final one. Take a drink or hit, your choice, viewer's choice. Every time someone says the word scheme, also starts to happen just a shitload after Allison meets up with the other trapped pilots. They say scheme, I want to say like 30 times. So if you want to get really blasted, then, you know, hang on to this one and keep this one in your pocket for later. So those are all of my drinking and smoking rules.
Yeah.
As you can see, I was delighted and was like, I'm having feelings. Let's write some rules.
I would like to submit a drinking rule for every time when they cut to a different shot and it doesn't match the shot right before it. Just take a drink every time that happens.
Yes. Again, we'll get into this in episode 3, but there was a lot of complicated stuff that went on with like the lab work and how it was like the film was put together, and that's why.
Okay.
So we'll get into that.
You're in for something, kids.
Oh my god, for real. Stay tuned for the next episode where we talk about like, why doesn't this culture have sign language? Who the fuck knows?
Right.
All right, Ben, before you collapse in grief about how much you hated this movie.
It's so ridiculous.
All right, everybody. Tune in for the next episode where we will be really going in on it. Like, we already started.
We've started.
Yeah, yeah.
You can
we'll see you next week.
It's a treat. Yeah.
You can find us on the internet.
Me on Instagram at NYDurgency.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at bsilverio20.
I'm at Indecisionist on Twitter and The Indecisionist on Instagram. Special thanks to April Moralba for our podcast art, and to Marlon Longett of Marlon the Shakes for our amazing music.
You can also interact with us using the hashtag #2party. That's time, the number 2 party.
Yeah. And until next time, kids, as usual, be excellent to each other.
Party on, dudes. Yeah. You know, in space or whatever.
Air guitar.
Pilot air guitar. All right. See you later.
You just have to hold it higher to get it above the
Right.
I'm in my space suit.